how do we keep our flame inside renewable and not in these times have it burn out? How do we have it burn brighter? And we need to be more inventive and creative than ever, especially as others are dimming the light. And now's our time. It's now or never. And if you're not in the game, get in the game. If you think you're doing great, you can do better. If you think it's a waste of time, this is going to be about your wallet and wealth and value. And so if you care about the future and the future of wealth and value, you have to get in the game of regeneration.
Hi, welcome back to another edition of Code Green. It is about conversations for a future we want and what our kids deserve. I've been interviewing the icons, the legends of the green world lately, and this one is no less than that. David Gottfried is the father of green building, and he has written several books, one of which I actually read. I always want to read the green books of the authors I interview, and even those I don't, but there's so many and so little time. But Green to Greed, Greed to Green, Greed to Green is one that was about his personal story. Welcome, David Gottfried. The second one you just told me was Greening My Life and then Explosion Green.
Yeah.
You're working on one now called Regen 360, Operating Systems for Planet Earth. And you've got something called, let's see, Build Move, How to Build a Movement and Create Legacy. I love all that. So you're the green, greed, no longer greedy, Gottfried guy. How you doing?
Well,
How you doing?
great to be here. Love your show. And we started having our first conversation probably 30 years ago. So,
Started just under 30 years ago, but who's counting? And so much has changed and too much has not.
but you don't look a day older.
Well, thank you. You know what I say when people are so nice to compliment me on my youth, just turned 70, passion keeps me young. Really, purpose, really. Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I call it PPM, passion, purpose, and mission.
Oh my God. So forget 450 parts per million, 350 parts per million of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. PPM. I like that. Passion,
Yeah,
purpose, and
mission.
mission. Well, I'm a woman on emission. And what is my mission? Get it? Emission is to make environmental news just as important, if not more so, than Jeffrey Epstein files going on month two or three. And he's been dead going on year two or three or more. You'd think that there's no Earth files, just Epstein files. You'd think that there wasn't a planet on fire. So that's why I started doing this to exit corporate media, to cover the stories and the news that count, and to interview my favorite people, the most knowledgeable, passionate, articulate, exciting, happy people I know. Truly, it's gratifying working on this, even though it's also can be overwhelmingly discouraging, occasionally depressing, but never despair. Well, maybe occasionally despairing. Anyway, enough about that. Jump in. Tell us what you've been up to lately, David.
Well, we'll turn that around.
While we're doing this, we keep trying. It's not easy right now, harder than ever. Maybe start there. In this moment, how are you doing?
I guess it's like an onion. We have layers of how we're doing. There's the one we tell people in the first time meeting them, or you have 5 seconds in the hallway at a conference, and then you can go like 7 layers to the core of the onion. But
Although those of us at the Green Conferences probably already know how we're doing, right?
I like many of us try to remain hopeful. And I spent a lot of time thinking about hope and what renews my own hope. How do we keep our flame inside renewable and not in these times have it burn out? How do we have it burn brighter? And we need to be more inventive and creative than ever, especially as others are dimming the light. And now's our time. And so I keep pushing myself to invent, be bold, uh, and keep in mind that we have very little time. Urgency divided by scale. We need scale. We don't need solar panels on the Titanic. We need to reverse things, the slope of climate change. And those are the things I work on. And I'm writing a new book, this fourth book called Regen 360. an operating system for a regenerative future. And I thought it'd be AI as a supplement to the human brain, so maybe we could make better decisions. And it is partly that, but it also went back, way back into a great remembering and into the soul. So in a way, it's CPR for the soul.
Oh, I think I need to read that one too. So let's go back to Greed to Green. What was your background that made you come up with that title? And what tell our audience, if I can remember, what triggered your turnaround, your wake-up call, your eco epiphany?
Well, I hit my head many times in my life. I need a few more.
Lately I hit my head and I think maybe it'll help.
But I started my first career as a real estate developer and contractor in Washington, D.C. I studied solar engineering in college and was in development, and it was very much about the bottom line, which makes sense for development, but you really know how to run your spreadsheets and your internal rates of returns, your net present values, all those things using tax losses. And then I tripped into green at the start of the green building movement in the US in 91 in DC with the American Institute of Architects had the Committee of the Environment. And literally, it was an epiphany because I went to the founding meetings there as a non-architect, this strange developer in a suit and tie. But they were talking about how we make buildings and the environmental, ecological impact of the buildings, the energy, the water, the waste, minimizing.
Mhm.
And I had studied solar engineering and even a net zero home I designed in 1980 as my project. And the light went off, but it was a renewable light. The light was the sun that went off and shined on me. And it's like, wow, I love buildings. I love development. I can run numbers all day long, but we could actually design, build, operate buildings to lessen ecological footprint. And a deeper idea was better buildings will perform better, should be worth more.
And how did you become the father of green building?
I think there's a lot of fathers and grandparents now. I'm probably now a grandparent of the green building
Okay.
movement.
Because the last
I
time I saw you, you mentioned your daughter was going to college. You're not a grandparent yet.
no, thank God, no. Too
Or
soon.
it's wonderful. Yeah, not yet, but it's wonderful when
But yeah, there's so many ways. I started working in green building in 91. I did the solar home in 1980. So it's a long time, enough to be a grandparent. But we now have waves of generations at green building. And us elders keep moving to the next wave, hopefully contributing and staying in the game. But in the early days, I first started at ASTM with a green building standard. It was kind of the first for the US. There was one in England that I got to study called BREEAM, and one that didn't work in Canada called the building BPAC, Building Performance Assessment Criteria. And I came up with the idea for a rating system for buildings in the US. And around that, we first formed the US Green Building Council. I made it a nonprofit and pulled together all hats in the building industry, 13 different sectors or instruments to make up the orchestra, and launched USGBC in 93.
Mm.
And so two of my books, Greed to Green is the 10-year memoir of that story. And then Explosion Green is the third one, is a 20-year story. Because enter 10 years in, the World Green Building Council I started out of the US one. Now we have 80 countries of green building councils. There are rating systems like LEED and Green Star and Three Star in China and CASB in Japan. There's $1 trillion of buildings in those rating systems and 50,000 organizations representing 5 million green building professionals. So the books are the story, but it's personal. It's my version of Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha. And it's that deeper thing we started with, which I called PPM. What's your passion, purpose, and mission, and how does it play out in your life? And I like to talk about the stages of our lives as we evolve.
Interesting. About 15, 20 years ago, when I was transitioning from trash talk to eco talk, from garbage to global warming, I went to a lot of the green building conferences, saw you at many of those. They were really well populated, a lot of excitement. Things were really, it seems like exploding, green explosion, exploding green. I don't know if I just haven't heard about them or I got busy with other things. What is the status of the green building movement?
It's proliferating, as I mentioned, 80 countries and growing. The World GBC's headquarters is in London. They have about 40 staff. We have the US GBC as strong as ever, headquartered in DC. 300 to 400 staff. We have chapters all over the US. We just came out with lead version 5.0. We have net zero as part of the process. We've dived deeper into scope 3 embodied carbon of materials like concrete and steel. We're looking at resiliency more than ever after all these wildfires, one of our biggest problems on Earth. So it's live and well. We're here in California. We have a newish USGBC California, which is our whole state, and that's very vibrant with 200 events a year and a gala and conferences. Green Build will be in LA in early November, so that's exciting. We'll take over the convention center. So join us.
Well, that sounds wonderful and exciting, and I know it's all 100% true. And yet, not to throw water on your fire here, but when I meet a contractor, builder, sometimes I say, so is green building growing? Getting a lot of, inquiries and demand from your customers who want to renovate or start from scratch and build. And too often they say, no, not really. Like, is the public still missing the opportunity, the boat, the fire burning on our planet? Like when I hear that, it's in a way it's not surprising because obviously green has not exploded enough. There's so many examples of that, right? That's why we're still at it. It's not the norm yet. It's still seen as the alternative. Where is it really? Somewhere between your optimism and just sort of the random questions that I've gotten answered where I get a little bit discouraged.
Well, we can always do better, no matter where you're at, even if it's net zero, can move into the positive. But there are carrots and sticks with government and policy. We're moving the building code, so that's the law here in California. Title 24 has made compact fluorescence and electrification and solar part of the mandates, more water efficient requirements, whether it's a faucet or a shower or a dishwasher. And so we are moving these codes. So the contractor has to, and the architect designed a code and build a code. So when they say not really, it actually is. Because if you look at some of those materials, the paints, the carpets, the adhesives, they're off-gassing less. We're putting more daylight in these buildings. We have dual pane windows, better insulation. So even when they think they're not doing compared to 20, 30 years, we have moved the bottom minimum. And then some are moving the middle and the advanced higher and higher. Solar's gone crazy and batteries now, and certainly the power from all the appliances and the fixtures and the water efficiency. We're starting to see things like gray water and black, not much black water, but water capture, whether it's rainwater or bathtubs. And the health side is moving as well. It can move a lot better. We always think we need to invent new technology to be better, but great technology is here and you can always design better if you'll just let your architect or builder go to their full potential. And economically, it can be cost neutral even, or a little bit more, but have life cycle savings.
Mhm. We need to grow the demand, right? I mean, I would think that some enlightened consumers, customers, builders, what have you, clients go to, build something and perhaps the contractor they've hired or the company they've hired is not a green builder. And if they were to say, hey, can you teach us how to build green? Have you seen those examples where that contractor, that builder will then attend a green build conference and learn? Like, where's the push coming from and where does it need to come from more?
Sure, all clients have to ask for it from their architect, their builder, their subcontractor, their landscaper, all everywhere, even the teachers of our kids. Where is climate change or resiliency in the conversation? I don't care if the kid's in elementary school, that's a great time to learn. If they don't know about it, there's simple books. You just put it right in front of them and say, read this, or here's Green Build, here's the California Green Building Conference. USGBC California is a simple guide we did with Arup on resiliency out of the LA fire rebuild. It's a short guide, but it
Mm.
talks about all the things that burned and what the alternatives are for the rebuild, hoping that everyone rebuilds better than the past. And we do wake up.
And smell the carbon, as I say. Should people be building, let alone rebuilding wooden houses? My husband's always saying, "Why build wood? It's going to burn." And what other materials are being used that are better in terms from a fire hazard point of view, or
Well, we have,
efficiency too?
there's wood that does burn, but there are different fire ratings. There's the CLT, laminated timber wood that's compressed, has higher fire ratings. And certainly there's steel, there's concrete and modular that burns a lot slower. And there are alternatives to just the normal stick build. So ask about the fire rating. Is it 2 hours, 3 hours? There's code, but you can go further with alternative materials and even different types of compressed wood. And certainly there's steel, lightweight concrete, SIP panels, modulars that don't have wood as well. And they're faster and more efficient and stronger.
I think there's a perception that building with green materials is more expensive. Is that still the case?
Doesn't have to be. There's a lot of economic case studies. One of the first was the city of Seattle, where they mandated green building for public buildings. They did a lot of fire stations and libraries. And at first, it was a few percent higher. And then as they did volume and the teams learned how to do it, it came down towards 1%, something like that. Certainly, as you go towards LEED Gold or Platinum, it's a higher level performance. And then you're looking at life cycle returns. But if you have a fixed budget, it's really how do you use your budget
Mhm.
for the highest ecological performance and health versus like I worked on a courthouse once in a charrette and they needed the marbles and the fancy walnuts and thick plush carpets and all those things. Those budgets were protected, but better windows, occupancy sensors, more daylighting, less indoor air quality issues, those had to be free. And the fancy judge stuff got the big fat budget. And so they were using the budget in the wrong way.
So often the case. And are green buildings healthier? I've seen quite a few studies that show actual research that they are. How so?
Absolutely. And there are a lot of health studies, some that Harvard did on indoor air quality. Uh, when we build out the buildings and the insides, way back when there were adhesives and preservatives even in the paint so that you could paint it, but then put the bucket on the shelf, and 2 years later it would still be a good paint. There's like formaldehyde and fungicides in them, and we started to remove those to have a shorter shelf life of the paint. But on that initial application, you didn't have the off gassing. And same for glues and stains, wood stains, things like that. And they do make buildings healthier. There's a rating system, the Living Building Challenge, it has a red list with about 40 products in it and all that they don't want. Those are on the red list to get out of the building. And there are people, about 10% of society, that has multiple chemical sensitivity, and they really react to those things. And there are different materials and finishes that don't trigger them, and they're a weakened immune system.
I'm really enjoying this because there's a lot of questions I guess I didn't know who to ask. I should have called you, but just as well we let other people know in the process. So I remember 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I was doing trash talk, and we were moving with a young child, our daughter, now not so young, with a young daughter herself. I would ask for low VOC paint and low VOC carpet, and I remember getting funny looks like, "What are you talking about?" At paint stores, Kerwin-Williams or sure whatever they are in San
Sherwin.
Francisco. Yeah, where they should know. And same with carpet. And is that now the norm, or do you still have to request it? And what percentage of the bad stuff that they're selling is the good stuff? Where's that at?
It's improving for sure. And certainly, like Lee gives you credit for lessening the off gas and doing that analysis. That's the first step. Do a survey and look at all those and their performance standards with air chamber tests and other things that measure the off gassing and the requirements. So it is improving. Some of it's hitting code, but there's always a higher level you can go and different materials that someone who's asthmatic or weakened immune system would do better at than other things.
Well, I would
And
think
there
we
are
could all do
books.
better with less chemicals in our home that we're breathing in. And I just wonder if more people would ask for it, if that would expand the supply.
100% for sure. And these architects and contractors getting educated and learning to read the labels, which is like the nutrition label of the building product or the material standard safety sheet, looking at that red list and informing yourself of better health decisions inside. We have the well building standard out of the International Well Foundation, which is in addition to leads the green building, energy, water, waste. This is going deeper on health, and you can glue them together, and it's guiding the health of buildings.
Again, I'm showing my age, or I guess how long I've been in the green trenches. But Ray Anderson was the big savior with Mohawk carpets, and he invented
Interface.
what did I say? Yeah, interface carpet tiles. Because we've all can hear him saying, "I looked in the mirror and I realized I was a plunder of the earth." He read Paul Hawkins' book. I forgot which one it was that
Yeah, ecology of commerce.
that brought his eco epiphany. And are all carpets now available in tiles because it makes so much sense? So if you spill something, you don't have to replace the whole carpet wall to wall, but just a piece of it, like a puzzle.
Yes, and he wrote a book. He passed away, which is sad, but I think it was called A Sword in My Chest, something like that. And he used to say early on, we're going to go up Mount Sustainability, even though they weren't on the top yet. He wanted us to join him in the journey and all other manufacturers by goal setting, tracking, seeing how you did, raising the bar. And Interface one of the first in carpet tile, but all the others have also produced similar products. They're different, but there's carpet squares like 18 by 18 inches. And when someone spills coffee or Diet Coke all over your broadloom, you don't have to replace the big run of it. And they're also more durable. They have a very solid backing. And now the firms, whether it's Interface or Shaw, they can take back their carpet that they install. They have a take back program with the contractors, and they can recycle that into the new carpet. And that's very important is the take back, and a lot of them are doing that.
Okay, so just roughly percentage, what percentage of carpets that are being sold in America today offer that greener alternative?
I would say most major carpet lines have a green alternative now. They all got in the game under the Carpet and Rug Institute and these off-gassing issues, and then percent recycled contents, and then recyclability. But there are probably some fancy small firms don't have that. They're going more for non-eco plush. But
Again,
if you're in the game and you're not studying these issues and pushing all the materials downstream, upstream, then you're negligent.
hmm, I think we have to wrap it up, even though I could go on with you, David. We'll have to have you back again. I'm so glad I know the father of Green Building. Lucky me.
A father, but thank you. And a grandfather. I'm a grandfather.
And speaking of grandchildren, this will be a good place to end because we mentioned Ray Anderson. I remember because I went to so many conferences that he spoke at. He was like the example, and like, where are the rest of them? Behind Ray Anderson, the first industrialist really to realize the error of his ways and do something about it in a big way. He used to read, and his talks, I'm sure you've heard this, would read a letter to his grandchildren, and we'd all clap, and I cried. And that was when I just had a young child before I became a grandmother. And now that I have this adorable, nearly 2-year-old, I would cry even more. So good thing I'm not hearing that speech. But, really, it is about, we're supposed to think about seventh generations. Look what's happened in one or two since you and I have just been in this space. So much knowledge, so much damage, so much political damage. That's really what we've got to turn around, don't we? And that will be your closing answer. If you want to say anything profound, this is your chance, or more profound than you've been.
We're out of time.
Yeah.
We're out of time here, but we're out of time on Earth and whether we can turn the ship. And it's now or never. And if you're not in the game, get in the game. If you think you're doing great, you can do better. If you think it's a waste of time, this is going to be about your wallet and wealth and value. And so if you care about the future and the future of wealth and value, you have to get in the game of regeneration.
As William McDonough said, it's all about how do we love our kids, country, and planet. I've not forgotten that quote either. These early green icons, and you're one of them. You're among them. So, thank you. And we have to just mention the obvious. Please vote for people who get it. I think it should be against the law to run for any office if you don't pass a science quiz, basic science, and if you don't understand it, go back to school, go read books like yours, and then come back and run for an office. Really, the fact that we've got a dinosaur in the White House again shows that half the country still needs a little code green.
Well, just stay on the golf course, stay out of politics.
Exactly, really. And golf courses are not so green and they're poisonous, the chemicals, but that's for another interview. Thanks so much, David Gottfried. Keep up the great work.
You too. Thanks for your show and for having me.